Welcome everyone to PopCultX episode 149. Once again, we are Gabriel and Danny, your hosts of PopCultX, bringing pop culture news to you from a Gen X point of view. Let's go ahead and get into it. Danny, how's it going?
It's going good. Going good. It's the weather is hot here in Vegas. It's been under like a heat wave, excessive heat advisory for the past feels like month, but it's just been hot. So of course, temperatures are heating up. Means I get to stay inside more with my AC and watch more pop culture stuff, I guess.
Nice. So, what have you been watching?
Well, they did release in June, and I finally finished it up. Season 3 of The Bear.
Oh, nice.
Which of course we know is the cooking show. I guess not a cooking show. The show set in a restaurant in Chicago, and it is so great. I really enjoy it. Season 3 seems to be a little more I don't want to say character development, but it dives a little bit deeper into the characters' backgrounds.
Nice.
Which I thought was really cool because we got to learn more about some of the stories that led up to maybe some of the not minor characters, but I can't think of the right word. The side characters. I don't know. We get to learn their backstories, which I thought was fascinating because it becomes this more robust world that they're living in. It isn't just the chaotic mess of the main character's life. So I thought that was really cool. Of course, Jamie Lee Curtis had another episode in there, which she was great in as well. And one of the cool little Easter eggs. Are you going to watch the show?
So Doug watches it, and I walk into episodes while he's watching. So like I know like little bits and pieces, but I haven't sat down and watch it. So like I kind of know what it's about. I kind of know the characters, but I'm not really watching it.
Okay. So I could say this. So, well, one of the cool little things on the very final episode, which is like they're having a funeral for the restaurant that really tied a lot of their chefs together, closes. They're showing pictures on the wall. And one of the pictures they show is Bradley Cooper's character from the movie Burnt. And so it really realized that, they're living in the same universe. So that same sort of the whole Michelin star thing that he talks about in Burnt, they kind of make a nuanced or a little Easter egg to that in this show. So seeing his picture on the wall there, I saw it once. I had to rewind it. I was like, wait, was that Bradley Cooper? Because I like the movie Burnt because, I don't know, I guess I like the chaos of a kitchen, and I really like those type of shows and movies. So it's seeing it there, I was like, yeah, it is. It was just a fun little Easter egg moment. So if anyone out there has seen the show, has seen the movie, and you caught that, what did you guys think about that moment? Was it exhilarating like it was for me? But it was really fun. I really enjoyed the whole season. Like I said, I enjoyed that they gave more backstory to the other characters and seeing what they went through. Like, oh goodness, I can't think of the character's name, but what she went through to get to where she's at in the current chaos. It's really cool.
Yeah, and they were nominated for like 500 Emmys, so they definitely are doing something right. So they are critically acclaimed. So definitely, I will have to go back and watch it because I am seeing like some highlights of it, and it is very interesting. I am kind of put off by like all the chaos and screaming of like the kitchen. Like that's not my thing. But I definitely have to go back and like kind of watch it for real, because it is, everyone rants and raves about it. So definitely have to check it out.
And the music supervisor and the creator, I guess, of the show, they put together a fantastic playlist for each episode. So the music was it's right up our alley. It's like late 90s alternative, and it's really well done.
Nice. Well, I did get to watch some stuff as well. I wasn't watching the Bear, but I went and saw Long Legs, which for those that don't know is a horror suspense movie with starring Nicolas Cage as a serial killer who is a serial killer and is being hunted by the FBI. There's an FBI agent that is trying to track him down. It's a really unique story. It definitely is like a throwback to Silence of the Lambs.
Okay.
There's some scenes that are like very similar to Silence of the Lambs. In the very beginning, there's a scene where the agent is kind of going through a house trying to find a killer, and it was very kind of like a throwback to when Jodie Foster is doing kind of this thing in
Mm-hmm.
Silence of the Lambs with like her gun and she's in the dark and she can't find the serial killer. So it's very similar in that way, but then it definitely takes a turn and is unique in its own right. Nicolas Cage does a really good job of being creepy and everything that you want in a serial killer, just weird. Physically, he kind of transformed himself. I think he used a lot of prosthetics to change his look. He's almost unrecognizable as Longlegs. He plays the title character, and the acting is really good. There's some great acting in it, and the plot is very unique. I don't want to give anything away by telling giving away anything for those that haven't watched it. But it definitely is suspenseful. There's some twists that you may or may not see coming, and it's definitely very scary.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I want to see that. I heard about that. My first thought was when I heard the title, I was like, oh, it's about spiders.
Yeah, not so much, but I mean, I guess it could be a metaphor for, a spider, a serial killer trapping its prey. I don't know
Oh,
if that's what necessarily the long legs is referring to. He calls himself long legs in the letters that he sends to or leaves at the crime scenes, and he's a satanic killer, so it has some sort of satanic edge to it. So that's kind of interesting. That has very freaky scenes. Definitely some really creepy moments in it. So if you're a fan of like Silence of the Lambs, you definitely want to check it out.
very cool. Very cool. Should we talk about the other Hollywood movie that played out in somewhere in Pennsylvania last weekend with a shooting that happened, or should we just ignore that?
What happened there? I don't even know about it.
Oh, you don't? Or like, wait, what?
I haven't heard what's going on.
Oh, nothing. Just this play they put on with the Secret Service and stuff, and it's kind of I don't know if it went over well. It wasn't well received on my end. No stars.
Yeah, I mean, coming from a pop culture perspective, I mean, it is on the news 24 hours a day right now, right? Like
Hmm.
it's definitely on the news cycle. Um, Violence is obviously never the answer.
Right.
So we don't support violence against anyone. People's reaction towards it is very interesting. Um, you One would kind of hope that one's response to a violent act is like the same straight across the board, like you would react to like the shooting in like Uvalde, like the elementary school
Exactly.
students, the same way you would with this incident. But it seems to be like a disconnect. Like there was people that were more worried about like the Second Amendment when it came to the Uvalde shooting that are now more sympathetic to like someone's ear getting injured slightly, and are not so much talking about gun control or their Second Amendment rights, but are focused on that whole situation that I really don't even want to get into. But it is sort of seems like it is a movie like we're kind of just living in this weird alternate universe,
Yeah.
uh, and it's interesting because it definitely has implications for all of us on what's going to happen in the future. So I guess all we can do is kind of encourage people to go out and vote and to utilize their privilege and their right to vote, and hopefully
Absolutely.
the right person wins, and we don't see our country go down the tubes.
Yeah. Well, that covers it perfectly. Yeah. I think that says it really well. Trying to avoid politics as much as we can here, but I think that we do have to exercise our right to vote
Yeah,
and vote for the candidate, like you said, that won't destroy our country.
yeah.
Yeah.
And a lighter note, I saw another movie that was quite good. It was Maxine,
Mm.
which is a trilogy. It's the third movie in X, Pearl, and then
Pearl. Okay.
Maxine. It takes place in the 80s. It's got sort of that like 80s slasher movie feel to it. So it's
Mhm.
really cool visually. Mia Goth plays the lead character again, and she's a really great actress. Does a really great job of playing a former adult film star going into transition into horror movies, and then her life becomes a real life horror movie
Oh,
when
nice.
someone starts to stalk her and kill off her friends and family. So it kind of spirals from there. Another kind of surprising twist at the end. So it's really interesting, but visually it's really quite stunning. Really fun movie. If you're definitely if you're like a fan of like those 80s slasher movies, this is going to be right up your lane. But it definitely finishes up that trilogy really well.
Very cool. I haven't yet to see any of the movies in the trilogy, but I've heard it's really well done and how it's each one is like a separate horror genres, I
Yeah.
guess. And I read somewhere I think that Martin Scorsese gave it a lot of praise, the whole series for being um very unique in that they're all interconnected, but they all have this sort of lane that they stay in.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely recommend Pearl and Maxine. And then oh wait, no, I said that incorrectly. I would recommend X, Maxine, and then Pearl.
Oh,
And
okay.
like I think that those are like they're all good films. Um Pearl is maybe slightly less so than the other two. But Maxine is you don't have to see the other two films in order to watch Maxine and to like get it or to understand it or enjoy it. It's definitely fun to watch all three of the trilogy, but you don't have to watch the other two in order to kind of watch Maxine and have fun
Right.
with it.
Right. That's what's cool about it is that they are all in their own little bubbles, so you don't have to watch to understand Maxine. Like you said, you don't have to watch the other two. So
Yeah,
that's really
and
cool.
it's a really interesting take on like a heroine in a horror slasher movie. There's a part of the movie where a detective is saying like, well, what are you going to do to help these other girls, who might be victims or these other people that might be victims? And they're like, why don't they help themselves? And
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of an interesting take, like it from a so-called hero or anti-hero for them to be like, don't be a victim and help yourself. So,
Yeah.
and she kind of takes that upon herself to like save herself or to try to save herself. And so it's really kind of interesting. It's not like that like damsel in distress kind of
Hmm.
moment we see within a lot of horror movies where they need to be saved or they're falling down while running away from Jason. And so it's really interesting. Mia Goth is a really great actress. She does a really great job in this as well. And it's like it literally is like it's from the 80s. It's like a movie that you would watch from the 80s. So I definitely right up my alley because that's like the generation that I grew up with watching those horror movies from the 80s and like that aesthetic. So it's very cool.
That's cool. Okay, good recommendation. I want to go watch that now. I haven't, like I said, I haven't seen them, but I will. Maybe I'll watch one this weekend, one next weekend. I don't
One of the weekends, one of these days, sit down and watch them out for sure.
know. What 80s horror movie would you say is your favorite if you had to pick one to recommend?
I don't know if it came out in the 80s, but I'm wearing Return of the Living Dead.
Okay, that was a great
It's
one.
like
Yeah.
one of my favorite
Hmm.
movies. I mean, I would say that I have to look it up because I don't want to be like it's totally from the 80s, but
I
uh
got IMDb open. Hold on. Return of the Living Dead.
85. So yes,
85, yeah.
it is an 80s movie. So I would say that just because like not only am I wearing this shirt, but like it's one of my favorite movies. It's like punk rock zombie kids, like you can't get any better than that. The soundtrack is really cool. The
More
visual is really
brains.
cool. Like pink haired zombies, like kind of a stripperish, like overly sexualized zombie. What else is really cool in there? Like the tar zombie is really cool. just like the fast moving running zombies that were kind of unique at the time. Like they didn't really have, not that all of them are really quick moving, some of them are really slow, but like they weren't like the same like zombies as like Day of the Dead or like Night of the Living Dead. So it definitely was scary. I've talked about how I'm super scared of zombies on the podcast like numerous times. So it still scares me, even though it's kind of like a cheesy movie. Um, it's really good. I love it. It's one of
Yeah.
my favorite. One of my other favorites is Night of the Comet. I was just talking about this at work.
Ooh,
I don't. You've seen it. For those that haven't seen it, it's about some people that survive this disastrous comet hitting Earth, and at one point we think that everyone on Earth has been killed. So you see two sisters and they go out and to go to the mall and like have a party and like get all dressed up and get fancy cars and guns. And it's just a really cool 80s movie. I just read an article that said that it's like on the top list of like the worst 80s movies. But like I love it. I think that it's super fun. Like I love that sort of like aesthetic of those types of films. They're definitely not winning Academy Awards, but they were really fun for what they were.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about you? Is there anything that sticks out about 80s films for you?
80s horror films?
Yeah.
I think I want to say Fright Night.
Right. It's cool.
If I think that was from the 80s. Yeah, 85 as well. Looks like 85 was very popular for horror movies from the 80s.
Yeah, it's a good.
What about what was it other vampire movie? Was Lost Boys from the 80s?
I want to say that Lost Boys is from the 80s.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
87. Yeah. So those are the two that I think really stood out to me the most. Maybe Vampires I really enjoyed in
Yeah.
the 80s, but that was a lot of those were a lot of fun. I actually rewatched Lost Boys recently for the first time in a while, and it held up really well.
I watch it all the time. Whenever it's on TV, I stop and watch it. It's such a good movie. I love Lost Boys. I love the stars in it are awesome. It's just such a good movie.
Mm-hmm. It really is. It really
Good
is.
track, good visuals, good act. Like the actors are perfect. It's just a really good movie.
I think the scene with the where he's eating rice, he's like, or is it noodles? Where and they said, "Are you sure that's rice and or noodles?" And it turns into worm. I don't remember if it was worms or
Oh,
maggots.
so it's rice that turns into maggots, and then it's noodles that turn into
Oh,
worms.
so it's both. Okay, that's why I was confused. Yeah, that scene really stuck with me, especially eating Chinese food afterwards. Growing up, it's like, do I want to eat this?
I had no problems. I had no problems going from that movie and eating Chinese food. So,
Okay.
uh, yeah, that movie was so iconic, though. I think like so many people of our generation, like that's a touchstone is Lost Boys.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
it's so good. Like the music and the soundtrack is amazing. Once again, the actors were perfectly cast.
Mhm.
Jason Patrick as Michael, Jamie Gertz as Star, Corey Haim.
Sutherland.
Yeah, Kiefer
Yep.
Sutherland, Diane Weiss. I mean, everyone in it was perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is, and I think you hit it right in those as a touchstone movie because it
Yeah,
really is something that we all, as a generation, can really see that we all have that shared experience with that film.
yeah.
Now, actually, I saw a video. What was it? It was about Gen X and events that happened that maybe we all had the same experiences. And this gentleman talked about his top five
Mhm.
moments. I don't remember the top five, but the number one event that he mentioned, and I agreed with it, was that the Challenger exploding.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah. See, we all have that same experience. We all had that same feeling where I remember sitting in the classroom, they brought in the TV,
Yep.
on that old little cart there for us to watch it because Sally Ride was there and she was the teacher going up for the first time in the space shuttle. And then, of course, we all watch it explode in real time.
Yeah.
And then they just wheel it out and we go about the day.
Yeah, yeah, it literally was the exact same situation for me, and I think it hit particularly hard for me because I wanted to be an astronaut at the time. Like I was so enamored with the idea of like going into space. being an astronaut. I was really in love with that idea. And so when that happened, it really like rocked my world, especially like being a child and like not really having death come up that often and then having it have, it confront you like that. So
Yeah.
I definitely would say that would be a top number one for me as well.
Yeah. So I don't know, it's just weird and it got me thinking more about what experiences we as a generation share.
Yeah.
And because we all have we all went through that together, as opposed to, maybe you read this or I read this and we never didn't see the same things, but that type of touchstone moment, like you said, was really that challenger. Yeah.
Well, other than the movies that I've been watching, I also have been reading some comic books. Speaking of space, the one that I just picked up is Killer Queens 2, which
Oh,
takes space.
okay.
Yeah, so I've been reading that. Really good, really funny, really cool artwork. Uh, and it's also an Eisner-nominated series.
Very
So
cool.
really cool. Speaking of really cool comic books and Eisner-nominated series, we have the pleasure of welcoming our next guest, who is known for their work on Black Cloak. So let's go ahead and get into that interview and get her introduced.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to PopCultX. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting the incredibly talented Meredith McClaren. Meredith is an acclaimed comic book artist and the co-creator of the hit series and Eisner-nominated series Black Cloak, alongside writer Kelly Thompson. It has this unique blend of fantasy, sci-fi, and detective noir. Black Cloak has captivated audiences and earned widespread acclaim. Meredith's impressive portfolio includes notable work like Hinges, Heart in a Box, and contributions to Gem and the Holograms, and super fun sexy times. She's known for her vibrant, expressive art style and exceptional storytelling ability. Meredith has carved a niche for herself in this comic book industry, and we are thrilled, like I said, to have her here on Pop Cult X. So, Meredith, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, I'm curious, just give us if you will, indulge us for a moment, your origin story into the world of comic books.
I've always been drawing since I was really little. Both my parents have an art background.
Okay.
And I honestly thought I was going to go into animation first. I got introduced to Sailor Moon around middle school, the comic book.
Okay.
At which point I'm like, oh, well, maybe I can make both things work. And I did briefly try the double major at the school I attended. I went to SCAD, Savannah College for Art Design.
Oh,
and
okay.
I really it was a period in time where it had been a couple years since Toy Story and all that, but people were still of the mindset that 3D animation was the only way to go. 2D was dead, and that was not what I was interested in. And also, I discovered that I didn't have the patience. I had the patience to draw one thing very well once. And then not do it ever again. So I sort of fell out of animation, made comics my full-time thing.
Right on. Well, we're glad that you did, because as you can see, some of the impressive artwork I have here is just what I really fell in love with your style is mainly your use of light and colors.
Yeah,
well, the use of light, the way it really draws the viewer in, and it really just pops. And is that something that, for me as a visual photographer, I really am drawn to light? Is that something that really plays with you a lot or sits with you?
Yeah, and I think that is a holdover from my interest in 2D animation. It sort of led me down the path to French comics and everything like that, and they really employ it as well.
Okay.
And yeah, I just like the vibrancy,
Yeah, I hear you.
It's those moments when you walk outside and you're like, that is so yellow or something like that. And you're like, and I don't know that I can ever capture that.
Yeah, I hear you. So going into Black Cloak, and it's of course a mix of fantasy and sci-fi elements. What was your approach to building that world, that Eisner-nominated world?
Well, Kelly really wanted the words she threw around a lot were Blade Runner. She really, really was leaning towards Blade Runner. But she wanted it to be bright and colorful. And I kind of had a moment of disconnect because my memories of Blade Runner is it's very dark and it was hard to see things. So I'm like, all right. But I tried to keep that in mind. And I think where Kelly and I balance so well is Kelly is very much into sci-fi and I'm very much into fantasy. So we kind of push and pull each other back. But yeah, I definitely look for a lot of real world inspirations, very, very tight cities with narrow streets and a lot of wiring going on, which are frankly my favorite to draw. So, and then I'm not as great at creature and character design as I would like to be. I don't know how other people feel about it. Just my personal standards. I would like to keep pushing it. You're always scared you're going to fall into something like same face syndrome or, but yeah, no, I try to find new creatures to play with, and Kelly's always throwing things at me where she's like, can we put this in the comic? Can we put this in the comic? And I'm like, yes, we can. I can do this. It's frankly very nice because, you have a special place in your heart for all the projects that you do, but I really feel like Black Cloak has pushed my artistic, creative and technical abilities to a new level that I really appreciate.
Nice. And so you kind of mentioned some of your things that you grew up like Sailor Moon, French comics. I'm curious, what were some of your other inspirations that you draw from when creating your own comic books?
A very simple creature, anime and manga and those French books. What else do I consume? I consume a lot of documentaries. So maybe that's where, I try to, even though it is a fantasy sci-fi environment, I try to put in elements that are rooted in real life. So you can sort of as touchstones. Steampunk's definitely in there. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Oh, actually, it would be criminal not for me to mention the time we were doing the first book. Arcane had come out,
okay,
and we had been working on the first issue, and I think we both saw that and we're like, okay, this is definitely like the vibe we were trying to narrow in on. So that was definitely a big inspiration for the book. So
nice.
Very cool. Very cool. When you were creating alongside with Kelly, did you have, or I guess I should rephrase that question. When you got the notification that you were Eisner nominated for the series, for the new series, what sort of how'd that feel, I guess? What was it like to know that you and Kelly's creator-owned work is now being recognized alongside these other major publishers?
Right. That was very nice. It was very nice. It was also one of those moments where I'm like, oh, does this mean I have to go to Comic-Con? And that's kind of mean for me to say, because I know it's like some people's dream to go to Comic-Con, and I don't want to diminish it. It's just the last couple of years. After having been made aware of like what can happen in tight spaces with lots of people, I find myself paranoid about it now.
I hear you.
But yeah, that was really nice because it is something, definitely that I had been reaching towards for a long time. And it's nice. It's gratifying to get that kind of nomination. Yeah. And then you see the rest of the list and you're like, oh, these are really good people. I was like, what am I doing here? So
do you get that like imposter syndrome feeling at all? Because you shouldn't.
No, okay, actually, good. I hadn't thought about that at all. I didn't get anything just me. Like that.
I just feel that way all the time.
No, I think I'd been in it for so long that I'm like, yes, finally.
It's about time. What took you so long?
If anything that I had done before or was to get nominated, it would be Black Cloak. Because like I said, Kelly has really brought out the best in me in that book.
How was that collaboration with Kelly? I spoke to Kelly last week and we had a good conversation, and she mentioned how you guys had a lot of back and forth with, like you said, with character design. So other than the character design, what was that collaboration like? And has it been the same with other people you've worked with?
I feel like it's been really easy with Kelly. We've worked together. We've known each other since I was working on Hinges.
Okay.
Which is when she reached out for me for Heart in a Box.
Okay.
And we just vibe really well. And I know that's not a gouache to say vibe anymore. But yeah, no, even though we do have sort of these different tastes narratively, I think we both really enjoy the same thing. You know, we like the same character arcs. We both don't have problem with, you know, a little blood and violence. So, and no, Kelly is, you know, most of the time she's pretty easy, and when she does push back, she has a good reason for it, and I ultimately end up agreeing with her. So I don't have any complaints with her there. And let's see, what is my experience with other people? Who else have I worked with? I've worked with Jen Van Meter, and she was also very lovely on Hopeless Savages. Recently, I had the experience of being sort of on the other side of things. I've got a book coming out with Andrea Bell, who also worked on The Leak. She and I have put together a middle school book called Crumble.
Oh, nice.
That should be out next year. It's sort of taking the idea of eating your feelings and making it literal. So, yeah. But yeah, that was something different where I'm like on the other side of stuff. I'm like, oh, as a writer, it's, you know, you're sort of like, oh, I need to take more responsibility now. As an artist, I can just like, this is my job. We just got to keep putting stuff out there. As a writer, I feel like I need to think about stuff more, and I'm not sure if I fully stepped into the shoes as much as I should have. But I mean, Andrea did such a beautiful job with that book. So it's like, you know, and it comes from a special place. So hopefully it reaches its audience.
Very cool.
Yeah. You know, I'm always sort of like of the opinion, it's like, could I have done more? Could I have engaged more? And so I think that lingers a lot, and it was very present when I was on the other side of things. So mostly with a lot of my collaborative efforts, it's like, you know, what am I bringing to the table, and how best can I bring it with what will bring out my best effort?
Yeah.
So.
Well, I did a little bit of online stalking, I guess you can call it, while trying to write your bio for the show here. And I saw that you have your Patreon, and it was really cool how you use mixed media there with some of your photographs and then your art style on there.
Yeah, I do travel a fair bit to interesting places. And, you know, I think I grew up when the whole like influencer thing began. So, you know, watching the evolution of that, and, you know, when you're when you're younger and you're in the headspace where you're like, I want to be famous. I want everyone to know who I am. Which I do not occupy anymore, at least where it's like, please don't look at me, my face, like I don't exist. But when I occupied that period, I was like, well, maybe I can I can jump in on this and take pictures in interesting places. And I realized very quickly that I'm like, it would just be me. I'm by myself a lot. And so it's like, and setting up a camera to take pictures by yourself is kind of, it's time intensive. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, well, I mean, I draw anyway, so I might as well just take the picture and then put myself, my me in there. I was already doing journal comics, so it's like I knew I had a recognizable little avatar of myself. So
that's cool.
And that fit the void very nicely, because it's like I said, I don't want people to see me, but I want them to see that I have been to these places.
Right.
I'm curious, is your traveling, has it influenced your artistic style as far as seeing different types of architecture, different types of fashion?
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. I just came back in January, I did a trip to Thailand and Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
And it always brings so much to the table when you're able to experience different places, and also to understand the variety in these places. No one place, New York City is not just tall buildings, or Japan and Korea is not just narrow alleyways and stuff like that. It's drive a little ways out and you'll find fields and, water buffalo. And it's a good reminder how multifaceted a community and even just a city can be.
Absolutely. Has the use of digital comic or digital art really influence your style a little bit more, because you get to play around with more, like?
Oh yeah. I'm really terrible in my coloring, where I'm like, I don't know how this is going to. Very rarely do I color something going, this is how it needs to look at the end. Okay. A lot of my coloring is like, well, let's see what happens when I do this. And a lot of, oh, I like that, or no, I don't like that. So
you're like Command Z or Control Z. Try again.
Yeah. Pencils and inks are where I'm like, I know how I want this to look, and then colors is like happy accidents all the time.
The Bob Ross approach, is that it?
Yeah. It is interesting though, with my dedication to light and vibrant colors in my pages, that I'm always coloring for print. And so it's a little rare that I get to play with the kind of effects you can get when it's purely for a digital to be seen on a screen.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Go ahead. I was just going to ask, if you were to be asked by someone who's aspiring to have a career in the art realm, if there's any advice that you have for them, if we've had a lot of artists on our podcast, and it seems to be a common theme of just don't give up and continue doing the things that you love. I'm curious if that was your experience, and if that's something that you would offer advice to someone who's looking to have a career.
Let's see. That is definitely what worked for me. If only because I was of the mindset where I'm like, this is really the only thing I'm very good at. Like, there's no plan B, so I have to make this work. And in comic, when I was in school, the rule was, in comics, there are three things. There's be good, be polite, or be fast. And you only need to do two of those things to really make it.
Interesting.
then Chaco has decided he wants to show up.
You have a tail growing out of your head now.
Yeah, yeah. I do. Anyway, but I would also say the industry isn't what it was when I started either. Yes, it's very good to keep going, and I would definitely advocate for a consistency that works for you, like as far as making your work available for people to see, like put it someplace where somebody can find it and then update it according to a schedule that works for you. Like if you're updating every day and you're just annihilating yourself to do it, like that's not good for anyone. Like people will hire you with that expectation and then you'll just keep doing it. And then you won't have a life. And excuse me. So that's really vital. And with the internet also, like, do what you want to do. Like,
yeah,
there's corners to every community. You will find your spaces. But also, like, I would just also really advise, have hobbies, do something outside of this. Like, this is very much a do as I say, not as I do. Like, I need to get myself back into that place.
Yeah.
But there's so much to be said for engaging different parts of your brain and giving yourselves breaks. And it brings something personal to your work. You know, we all start from a place where we're trying to emulate whoever we grew up with, the people we look up to. And your life and your interests are the things that will make this artwork yours.
Yeah.
And that's, sorry, one last tangent. Don't get hung up on trying to find your style. It happens. It just happens. And what it is it's your shorthand. It's like, this is how I draw noses because this is how I feel it's the most easily recognized with, you know, the amount of effort that I deem appropriate for it. You know, it's if you get like obsessed with finding a style, you're thinking too hard about it. Like, just if you want to find out what you do, just draw, you know, just keep drawing. You'll find it. It'll get there. and eventually one day, just naturally, you'll be drawing without thinking about this. And people say, oh, that's you. I recognize your stuff. And you're just like, oh, this is the thing I do.
I think that's very important, and it goes across many different artistic mediums. Because like myself, I get hung up on maybe if I'm writing, like, what's my style, or photography, like, what's my style, and trying to find that. And you're right, it's just something that comes naturally and would as you do it. And
it's just something you fall into after repeated, you know, effort.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's very great advice there, not to get hung up on it. And I think I tend to do that. So bad me.
and also, like, even if there's a style you're trying to emulate, like, given enough time, you will find the parts of it. You will figure out either intuitively or, you know, very intellectually what it is about that other person's mark that you are responding to, and then you will figure out a way to incorporate it into your own stuff. Like, that's also the artist journey. It never ends. You're always like, okay, this is where I'm at, and then you find something new and you're like, oh, I really like that. How do I, you know, move things around to make space for this? And then you find another, you know, plateau, and then you sort of look around again. You're like, oh, I really like that. It's an ongoing thing. It's an evolution.
Yeah. Well, speaking of evolution, then, had you noticed a difference in your artistic style from when you began to now?
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know if I could articulate it, but there's definitely something to be said. I always really enjoy those memes where people are like, "This is what I drew in 2015, and then I redrew it, and this is what it looks like now." And it's, I always go back to some stuff like even a year ago, and I'm like, "All right, if I was doing this now, it'd be very different." So, um, yeah, trying to, yeah, I don't know that I can. I think I've one thing I have definitely noticed is I give my characters more mass,
Mm.
I grew up on a lot of the manga creative collective Clamp, where they have these very like tall, wafy figures. And I'm trying, and now I'm sort of like, there's a point in time in your life where you're like, oh, there's a lot of different interesting shapes in people.
Okay.
And that's really the space I'm trying to move towards.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, you mentioned documentaries that you watch, consume a lot of those.
Yeah.
What other pop culture? We are a pop culture podcast. So what other pop culture items, music, movies, books that maybe you're consuming that you can share with us?
Okay. Well, okay. So a lot of it is documentaries because I'm always working with some noise on. So, and I'm always working. So again, have hobbies. um, as a result, I don't get to watch a lot of stuff that's scripted.
Okay.
But the stuff that I've made space for, definitely the live action One Piece was the last thing I saw where I'm like, this is amazing because it's the perfect amount of camp and seriousness to it. Like, I fully recognize that if this had come along when I was younger, I would have been like, it would have been all that I would have been about for at least a year. um, it it tapped into a kind of whimsy that I hadn't experienced in a long time, and I really appreciated that. So they did a really amazing job with that. And what else? I already said the Arcane show for obvious reasons. Like, there's a reason everyone loves it. I was already aware of League of Legends at the time. I'm a very terrible video game person, but I often enjoy the lore of video games.
Oh, okay.
And the artwork that goes into them. And so somehow I ended up falling into like, I can't play worth a can of beans, but I definitely enjoy knowing, this character's background. Like,
That's interesting.
and also
That is
they do these really gorgeous music video stings when like there's new characters, or they do these cinematics for each new year. They fell off one year, they didn't do it, and it was just like the fan base like rioted. They haven't made that mistake since. But just visually, it's beautiful. And then I'm listening to a lot of a Japanese artist named Ado.
Okay.
That actually probably ties back to One Piece too, because I know she did music for their most recent animated movie. But they also do these great animated music videos that I love so much. It's just enough. It's bite sized, so I'm like, I can take breaks between work and like watch the thing, just sort of, and then that turns into me like freezing frames and going, how did they do that? That's so good.
That is really cool.
But yeah, after that, it's I'm ashamed to say a lot of news about like YouTube personalities. I never grew up watching people like Markiplier or some of the dark horses now, like Wings of Redemption or anything like that. But I'm very invested in their lives now. And I'm like, I've never watched a serious video from any of them. Like, what is this? I gravitate towards trash fires a lot of the time. Trash fire and gossipy news.
Nice.
That is my terrible truth.
There you go. We all need a hobby or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know that I can with my full chest go, this is something you should do. Like, find something nicer. There's good stuff out there.
Yeah.
There's better stuff. I do like a lot of documentaries about athletes.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I don't have an athletic bone in my body. But there's, and I think this extends to other documentaries. I just see it more in sports documentaries. Seeing somebody who's so passionate and committed to what they do is it's so uplifting, and it's wonderful to see.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I know that a lot of the 30 for 30s, I think they're called.
Those are really interesting. I've got the Sprint documentary on Netflix queued up. I need to make time for that. And also, I know they just released one for Simone Biles. I'm very hesitant to pick up new subscriptions, so I think I only have like Netflix, whereas everyone's got Hulu and Disney and everything.
There's so many now. So.
Yeah, there's so many now, and everyone's like, you should watch this, and I'm like,
is it on Netflix?
Is it on Netflix or on YouTube? Like, I just don't want to make another password. It's like I've already got a spreadsheet of passwords. I'm like, I don't need more.
That's very understandable. I get that. It's like, I don't want to make a new password for another.
Unfortunately, it translates to social media. It's like, because every 3 months we've got a new. Everyone's trying to find the place to gravitate to outside of Twitter. And so we've got Kara and we've got Blue Sky and everything like that. And so I'm always very late to any party, because I'm like, I'll do it when I have to. I think I only ever got an Instagram even because people started asking me at conventions, like, you have an Instagram? I'm like, no, but I guess I gotta now.
And I will link your Instagram in the show notes there, so if people want to go follow you. And I think it's I can't even
Iniquitous Fish. Yeah,
Iniquitous Fish.
I really shot myself in the foot there. Like back in high school, I was looking for a username along the lines of Wicked Fish, and then I made the mistake of going to the thesaurus and choosing a word nobody can say and nobody can spell, and that's also my email. It's like, what have I done? No. And by this point, it's like, that's what everyone knows me as. Nobody can say it, but they'll recognize it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, if they're able to spell it to get to you, then they deserve getting to you, right?
Yeah, no, that's terrible. That's terrible advice for the industry. You want to make it as easy for people to find you as possible. That's my advice.
There you go. You said cons that you were going to cons, and that's what led you to social media. How is it like interacting with fans at cons for you?
Oh, it's always really nice. It's always very nice. Yeah, I can't remember the last time I had a bad experience.
Oh, cool.
With that. You get to look at all the costumes too, which is always so engaging. A lot of my friends are cosplayers, and so I think I'm a little more like, in some cases, I'm not going to pretend like I know oodles and oodles about what goes into cosplay, but I know it's always a lot more effort than it looks.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'll look at a thing and I'll know, oh, that was difficult to do. You really put in the effort there. But no, I always have a really nice time talking to people. They're always usually very engaging. The only time I'm really sort of, I don't want to use a word as harsh as disappointed, but there is this sometimes people try to build you up by saying, you know, this other artist is bad. I don't know why they went with them instead of you. And it's like, please don't do that. It's a very small community. We're all pulling for each other. Like we all want each other to do very well.
Yeah.
So
that's cool. That's really cool. Well, if people, we've got the Instagram. If anywhere else people can find you on that you'd like to let them know about?
The Patreon would be nice.
Okay.
I'm also on Tumblr.
Okay.
That's the other thing. It's like once I have an account somewhere, it's like I will leave when the site is dead. You know. Tumblr. I got a Twitter. They're all the same. Actually, no. I was smart enough with my Tumblr to actually put my name on it instead of Iniquitous Fish.
There you go.
But Twitter and Instagram are both the Iniquitous Fish, and Patreon is my name. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Meredith, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. We really appreciate it. We're really looking forward to hopefully hearing some great news when the Eisner Awards come out. I mean, Black Cloak is a fabulous series, and I hope it just gets the recognition that it deserves.
It's stiff competition. You know, I was looking at it like, oh, Becky's there. Becky is a comic starling. Like, so, but no, it's tried to say, but it's like, I'm in really good company. So
yeah, you are. So thank you so much. And we appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really lovely talking to you.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you again, Meredith, for spending some time chatting with us about your inspiration, your anime likes, and just how you are evolving your artistic style. I think that's really cool. So thanks again.
Yeah, just really cool conversation. I just wanted to reiterate that as well.
Yeah. I think that's all I have for this episode.
Yeah, same for me. Going to be checking out some other comic books, going to the comic book store as we speak. So I'll be checking out some new books. Please hit me up if there's any recommendations that you have for anything that is flying under the radar that maybe I don't know about that I should check out, as well as any movies, music, TV shows. We're always keeping our eyes and ears open to anything that is new that we should be checking out.
Absolutely. So hit us up in the comments, send us an email, find us on social media, and we will see you all next time. I think with our next episode where we wrap up our comic book journey.
Nice. See ya. Stay safe, everyone.